everything that you need to know about skateboarding. We're going to talk about the parts of the skateboard. We're going to talk about how to stand, how to stop, how to protect yourself,
including how to purchase a skateboard, which is very important to have. And then we also talk about how to advance your skateboarding, from how to hit small ramps, how to hit larger ramps, everything from ollieing, grinding, and gapping, and more. Stick around. So when we break it down, there's multiple parts of the board. The first thing you're going to come across, if you were going layer down, would be your grip tape. It's the black part here. You see I have a nice design on my grip tape. It's what helps us glue ourselves to the board. It gets friction so we can jump and we don't lose our board in the air. Now that's attached to something we call a deck, the skateboard part itself. So it's a piece of wood, usually about 7 to 8 plies, and it allows us to be able to ride the skateboard. It is our main section of the board. Now, as you break that down from there, you'll see there's 4 bolts on each side. That's 8 bolts in total. That is our hardware. These are lug nuts that are basically holding the next part of the board we're going to explain to the deck. And as you flip it over, we find more parts. Now that we've broken through the hardware, those are attaching the trucks. The trucks are the metal piece that has here. We have a base plate, which is the bottom green part of my board, and we have an axle, which is the metal part that we grind on. Inside that has a few parts. We have what's known as bushing caps and bushings, so the jelly stuff here. This helps us keep our board to turn and takes a lot of the shock absorbing going on when you jump down things or start to grind. It is hooked to what is known as a kingpin, the big bolt in the middle that holds the trucks together and allows the board to be able to go back and forth. So the tighter it is, the less it does that. So that allows you carving ability. Now from the axle extends out, and we have what's called the wheels. The wheels are what we roll on, and they're attached to inside the wheels what is known as bearings, and that's what allows it to spin. Typically, 7 ball bearings are going to be found inside of our bearings. You can see that mine have the exposed bearings for that reason. And with that, we have our axle nuts on the end of it to hold the wheels together so they don't go flying off as we skateboard. Now, most skateboards have a detail. Not always, some are blank, but that is the paint, usually hand painted or laser painted on. Some are laminated. It lets you slide a little better. But overall, that is the complete parts of a deck. More things could come along. You could find that between the base plate and the board, what might be a plastic piece, a rubber piece called the riser. This allows you to make the board a little higher or take more shock absorbing when you jump. I don't have a riser, unfortunately, on mine. I don't usually utilize them, but they are available. There are also things that you may come across, plastic bars that go across the sides of the board or even sometimes around the tail of the nose. Those will be known as rails. They help the skaters, usually on half pipes and stuff, be able to slide across the rails without any friction. They're made of plastic and a little bit more slipperier substance. We don't have those to example as of right now, but you can definitely look into that. But that is most of the parts of a skateboard.
So if I'm starting brand new as an adult skater or my parent that has a child, where do I buy my first skateboard?
There's many outlets to utilize to find your first skateboard. Typically, most people will go the route of even a Walmart, a Myers, places that may sell this, Dunham's, sporting goods stores. But most of the local skaters will go to their local skate shop. They're buildings made personally for skateboarders. They have everything you'll need there, from clothes to the hardware to even accessories that go outside of skateboarding. Skate shops are excellent places to go. And if you want to go a little further than that, there's also online shopping, places like CCS, Amazon, things like this, where you can also find and purchase your first skateboard.
How do I pick a skateboard for my kids, or how do I pick a skateboard as an adult?
So it may come in different ranges. They do have decks that are not as long and as big as this. So if you're a younger cat who's a little bit smaller in the body, they do have decks that are different sizes and different weights that allow you to be able to train a little better. As an adult, any deck could probably work for you. Wider is better for some people, but sometimes they want to get real fancy and flip the board real fast. You might want to go for something a little thinner.
I weigh about 250 pounds, and one of the things that I learned is you want to buy a board that's wide. The wider the board, the better if you're taller or if you're heavy like me.
Some people do like tighter trucks, some people like them loose. You will find that preference as you begin to build your skill set and your comfortability on the board, but that's the most important part. You want to feel comfortable.
If you're brand new and you buy a board, and it may be a little bit too loose, you want to go ahead and make sure that those are tight enough for you. Now, if you're buying for your kids, Corey taught both my kids, they're part of Ranger Skate Academy. They got started with Walmart boards. Was that correct, Corey?
That is correct.
And then the Walmart boards, be careful when you buy them. Make sure that you can change the wheels, because they got started with Walmart boards. Once they progressed, we were able to change some of the gear. We got them new wheels and new bearings, and that made a difference. And once they stuck with the sport for about 2 years, we were able to buy them customized skateboards.
May want to start off your younger cat, maybe from the ages, let's say, 13 and under. They may want to start off with that littler deck, but you got to remember that people eventually will grow and be bigger. So sometimes starting off with a deck in a regular size for adults will be the advantage they'll get. When they start off doing tricks on these at a smaller body, when they grow into it, they're only going to be more accustomed to using a board this size. So if you really want to start a child up who's younger than maybe 10 years old, it's fine to start them off on a smaller deck that's more size for kids, but it's probably a best advantage to give them something that's already this size, because that's what they're going to grow into and be used to skating every time as an adult.
If you're an adult, I would not recommend buying a skateboard from Walmart. There's a lot of people in their 40s trying to skate now, and some even in their 50s. If you're older, spend the money on a good board, go to a shop and have it adjusted, because it's going to be easier for you to stand on the skateboard, and you're going to fall down at some point, and we'll talk more about that.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's talk about protection.
Oh, great question. So protection is very important, because one thing you want to do when you do fall in love with a hobby like skateboarding, you want to do it for as long as possible. And the best way to go about it is wearing your protective gear as much as you can, especially if you're a beginner. I cannot stress enough that one mistake could be the end of your career, or even put you in a situation you do not want to live with forever. So let's be safe as we begin to learn to skate, and as you grow into it, choose your equipment wisely as you progress into a much more advanced state.
As a parent, do you want to go ahead and get protection for your kids? It's always easy for kids. They're not very expensive. You can spend $12, $15 on almost a full set without the helmet. You know, if you buy a helmet, you know, you may be into the 30s, but you want to get them those pads. Why? Because when they fall down, if they get scraped, they're going to have a bad experience with skating, and they're not going to want to skate anymore. Corey was a big advocate of that with my kids, and I'm so glad, because we were at a skate park, and there were some kids that were learning how to skate, and one of the girls fell down and scraped her elbow, and then she didn't want to skate anymore. She just wanted to sit down, and her mom wanted to get her out with her siblings, and she just didn't want that. And my kids got as far as they did because they had protection. Because once they graduated to the ramps, because they had that protection, when they would fall, it wasn't quite as bad. Now, if you're an adult, and if you haven't skated, or you notice that you feel shaky on the board, I recommend to get protection. I didn't one day, and this is what happened. And you can see that I fell down, and that actually took about 8 months for me to get back on the board, because I didn't break the wrist. It was sprained really bad. I had some ligament damage, and it took a long time. So please be safe out there. Spend the money on the protection, and you'll feel a little bit more comfortable skating as well.
Now we're going to talk about how to stand on the board. So what we want to do is make sure we have the best foot position so we don't go crashing down as we even start our adventure. Best thing to do always is, when you're positioning your feet, to have them parallel when you're actually on the board. And the way to go about it is, this foot's vertical. And when you go to push, I am goofy, so my right foot is in front. So let's just use it like that. If you're regular, you'd have your left foot in front. But as I push, I consider this what's called live, which means it's moving forward, and then this is dead. We want one live foot as we pump, and then one dead foot, and then match the other one, so that we have a perfect parallel feet, so you have the best balance you can. You're not turned with your body like this, and you're not full feet like this, which is going to be dangerous and no stability. So when you're moving back and forth, depending on if you're goofy or regular, again, I am goofy, so my right foot is front. When I'm moving forward, this is my regular stance. Even though it's called goofy and there's a regular, this is our regular stance on how we move. So as I'm moving forward, my right side is the front of my side. I'm going forward. Now, if we stop that and go reversal, there's a new way of thinking about this, new terminology. This is called fakie if I'm going to use the front of my board as I move backwards, or switched if I'm going to use the back of the board and attempt to do the same tricks I normally do as a regular stance, but backwards.
Well, should I practice? Once I feel a little comfortable, going the opposite way at an early stage, or should I just keep practicing the same direction and maybe get better at a few ramps before I learn how to feel comfortable the other way?
Great question, Steve. Now, look, I would go about it in this two ways. One, it is kind of advanced to go backwards and be more comfortable in that situation, but as you begin, all stances are going to feel uncomfortable. So while you're in a fresh, uncomfortable stage, why not learn both directions? Because it's like learning another language or learning to be able to speak something a little more fluently by learning extra tricks and trades. So I believe personally, while you're young, while you're starting as a beginner, try to learn backwards and forwards, because you're going to feel uncomfortable no matter which way you go. And then eventually you get good at both at the same time. Now, if you wait to get really, really good at just skating regular and you go to try to learn how to do things, you're going to go in that uncomfortable zone again, and you may be deterred from trying the same tricks you do regular because it feels uncomfortable.
Now, when I go the other way, should I push with the opposite foot, or should I just practice just sliding the opposite way?
So I've always been a big fan of no Mongo. Yes. Now I can give you an example how that difference would be in pumping. A little more comfortable both ways for me. So if I'm pumping goofy, I'm pumping here, I'm feeling good, my back foot goes on, I turn my foot, great. Now when I go switched, now if I'm going to skate switch, I'm going to go the same thing because of this. Now reason why I'd go Mongo fakie is because as I pump Mongo, my back foot touches first, and all I got to do is switch my foot up and create the trick. Not as easy when you're skating regular and doing this. So if I go Mongo and I skate regular, I have to put my foot on first, turn this foot to get ready, and that's a lot of time before you hit a stair set. Believe me, you need every minute to get yourself prepped, ready to go, and ready to fire that trick off as soon as that edge comes up to you. All right, guys, we're going to talk about how to stop now. This is a very crucial thing because a lot of times speed is great, but how do you get yourself out of the way of obstacles, or how do you stop yourself from danger? Well, there's multiple ways of getting stopping done on a skateboard. Here's a few key ways of getting this taken care of. I'll come back for it here. Typical one, stopping with your feet. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Next one. Stopping with your tail. Now that's going to be a little dangerous because what happens is after you do that, you get this razor tail. And if you're getting good at skateboarding and one of these hits you in the shin or leg, you're gonna feel it. So usually stopping with your tail is an emergency type thing, but it's another way of going out stopping. Now the power slide. Oh yeah, now that feels good. That's one of my favorite ways to stop, and it just looks good. So those are three ways you can go about stopping when you finally build that speed that you guys got.
Or can you go over it really quickly how to do that?
So with the power slide, kind of a tip trick on how this is working, I'm kind of using a snowboarder's effect here. Now, when you turn with a skateboard, you have two ways. You have carving, surfer style, and you have basically pinpointing your direction with tic-tocs. Now, all I'm doing from that direction, instead of just lifting and turning my nose away, I'm putting pressure into my back hip and leg to push this tail area out in front of me. So with that combination, I'm looking at this. Back side, front side, two wheels at that. So all kinds of ways of going about it. It's kind of like blunt sliding, but on the ground.
Excellent.
Yep.
How long do you think it takes for somebody who started on a skateboard to get to the point where they're comfortable carving or turning to where they can start practicing those power slides?
I mean, power slides, you're going to take practice at it because you're going to fall a couple times. It does take a little bit of understanding friction, your body weight, and how to recorrect yourself once you do get that power slide locked in. But I feel like it's one of those lower tier, probably top of your beginner, right into the lower part of your amateur or intermediate style skating. But it's one of those tricks that a lot of people find out when you're going down a hill or you're trying to stop real quick in front of a wall. You just naturally do it, and then you find out.
I've fallen many times, and now Corey's going to talk to you about falling.
Oh yeah, guys. If there's anything about this sport, I think the best skaters should know and should say is that skateboarding is falling with grace. Surviving the fall is what we basically do every time we go to jump at something. We're falling out of the sky and landing on something and trying to roll away. But most of the time, as you're learning and practicing, you're going to constantly fall until you get the right one. So it's important to know how to fall so you can continue to practice and continue to work towards that trick you're trying to get, and you don't get injured and put yourself out for a season or so. So a few things I would like to say is always remember not to stick your arms out. A stiff arm can easily break if you put it out first and take the impact. So most of the times whenever I fall, I try to do a mixture of me kind of putting my hands in front of my body but tucking and rolling. Something similar like this. I'll come back. So typically I would jump on something, and then as I fall, I would tumble and roll, rolling back to my feet, usually looking back towards, away from the obstacle, because if you continue to roll forward, the momentum will get you to go towards something like your head instead. I'd rather be able to roll and then turn away so the momentum stops. Typically, a lot of times people will just jump to their feet sometimes, if you're lucky enough, but a lot of times falls are something you don't want or predict. So it's just good to be very loose and limber about how everything you're doing until you get that right form that gets you that trick every time.
We're going to talk about turning a little bit here.
Okay. So turning basically comes down to two ways: your surfer style and kind of more of your precise dodging dangerous obstacles. Most of the time you're going to carve when it comes to quarter pipes and transitions, but even with dangerous objects in your way, you can use carving to your advantage. So this wall right here, I'm going to carve out of the way. To carve, you're just basically doing what's known as heel or toe. Toes, you point them downwards. Heels, you point them backwards. Heel and toe. So with my obstacle in front of me, I want to toe away from it. So as I get close, I'm going to toe away, recorrecting myself away. Now, otherwise, if it's too fast or too quick, or that's not an option for me to do, there's the tick-tock way that you learn to pivot yourself away. What is a tick-tock? Well, great question. Tick-tocking is what gets you more of that precise turn. It's kind of like doing a real quick mani and laying yourself back down. So you can start by just doing your round the clocks, you know, both directions, of course, will only give you that more of an advantage. And then you get better at it by pivoting 180s or eventually 360s, and until who knows what degree you can get it to. But those are the typical ways you want to learn how to turn, and here's how it looks like turning away from obstacle. Easy, simple, and keeps you safe.
So as you get better, you're going to be comfortable going on flatline.
Yeah.
And it's time to address the curve of a small ramp.
Yeah.
How do you address that, turning on a ramp? Or do you recommend people get comfortable going up the ramp first?
So honestly, you're first going to get comfortable by just going towards any wedge type ramps. They're probably the best to start off with. So this is a wedge right here. First things you're going to learn is just to learn how to go up a ramp, feel confidence on the stop, and come back fakie, we talked about earlier in the video. Once you get used to that, it gets a little, I don't want to do that every place I go. I want to see the other side, or I don't feel as comfortable skating switched or fakie as I wanted to. So what we do is we utilize both things. Carving would be a wide turn away from this. So here I'm going to come from a very, very far right to get myself back to the left. Now some people, that's not enough room, you don't have enough space, you're going too fast, or you're going straight at an obstacle and you don't have that carvability. Well, that's where the tick-tocking style comes in. Again, you've learned now how to do 90s and 180s. This is what we're doing. The exact same thing. So now I've done what's known as a kick turn. I've turned around at the top of the ramp and kicked it around to be back to my original stance.
So now, as people are getting comfortable going up the ramp, everybody, I myself took a while. Can you tell them what you showed me, where you showed them to first get on the first part of the ramp, learn to stop, and then do a 90-degree
So
turn?
if you're having a hard time, or you've been practicing this and you're having a difficulty getting the complete turnaround on the kick turn, break it down in pieces. I've always told everybody, you want to exaggerate big amounts of exaggeration to everything you do, and then dial it back down. So here's a way to dial this down. Instead of just going up and turning all the way around, break it down in two pieces. We know we can do a 90. You can stay here all day. Then you do another 90 and you're right back down in the position you are. So you can do it on your own pace, your own timing, and feel safe and comfortable each step of the way.
All right, perfect. Now I'm gonna go ahead and try this. I've not tried this in this park at all.
Best tip, my friend, is don't go for the height right now. Worry about the lower part of it, even if it's not that high in the ramp. Worry on that first, and then build yourself up higher and higher as you get more comfortable and better at it.
Perfect. So I'm just gonna start very low because I'm not very comfortable
Excellent.
yet, and I need more time on my board.
Not a worry. We got it a fakie. That's the first part.
I decided not to stop because he was still too fast for me, so
Yeah.
I'm going to go a little bit slower and try to get a little bit lower on
lower on the ramp. And this is all building up your base.
Boy.
Ah, there it is.
Again, when you get those struts and those wheels, you're going to go very fast.
Once you get new bearings in there, yeah, there's no controlling it now.
It doesn't take long, so I'm going to go very slow because, again, I don't want to go too fast. Now I feel comfortable.
There it is.
Good.
Holding on. And that's what we're talking about.
And that's the first one I've done
ever
since I felt
at this park.
So we're gonna go ahead and talk about comfort on your board. Because you saw me doing that trick, and you saw there was some shaking in there. So tell us about how comfortable do you need to be on your board?
I think comfortability is one of the key things to make skateboarding the most funnest and most creative sport of all. The more comfortable you are by riding the ride, just surviving through each motion. One thing I give props to Steven in this clip is that even though he took a second to get around his kick turn, he stuck with it. He didn't give up just because he felt uncomfortable. He went through the whole process and gave that board the demand he wanted to pull off and continue his route. That's important to do. No matter what you're learning, try to stick with it, no matter how nervousing it may be, and try to ride out through it. But there are moments you're going to get a little rocky. So comfortability is one of the key factors about being on your board. And to do that, it's just to really work with your board and understand it's not a danger. Skateboarding is a tool. It is a toy. It is something you can experiment with. So there's no wrong way to do it. But there is ways to get yourself more comfortable with your board by even doing things like just being around your board, standing on it, lifting one leg up, moving your feet around, knowing that you're in control, jumping on and off of a board, practicing, just grabbing your board in certain ways, that you feel that you're in control of every situation you're putting yourself into, and that you have an exit plan or a way to comfortably get through it mentally and physically.
As a physical education coach, every sport requires different muscle groups. And one of the things that I've realized, even though I've played 2 different sports professionally, is the muscles that I use for skateboard in my calf and all the muscles that help me balance, some of those are weak. So getting on your board, like Corey said, and practicing moving your ankles and being able to twist and bending down, working on that balance, it's going to help you develop those muscles to where they're a little bit stronger, where it's going to be easier for you to really balance yourself. And if you notice, when I turn on the hill, I was not very balanced, and I remember to get down, but I could feel some of my muscles were weak, so I will have to spend time, a lot more time on the board to strengthen those balanced muscles.
Right. And that's the thing. Skateboarding eventually breaks down into muscle memory. So the more you do something over and over again, the more you less think about it, and the more your body just reacts naturally, and you get much more comfortable and much more fun out of the session than if you were just stressing over every little bit of the mental game.
Now we're going to talk a little bit about how to drop on ramps, but we're going to learn the difference between ramps, because some are much harder than others.
The word we're looking for is transition. Transition is found in many different ways, different heights and different measurements. So normally we want to start out in something a little more flat, because we're going from flat land, learning how to skate comfortably on a flat thing, and now we're trying to learn to go down a slope of some sort. Our first slope in our shapes is usually a wedge. Anything that's in a bank size, so find one at your local skate park, or maybe a street spot that has a little handicap ramp you can practice on, but mostly find one that seems like a pretty small, easy one to start off on. You have 2 options. Now, if there's a flat spot that goes to the wedge, great. We'll show you an example of how that goes, but most times you'll find skate parks have wedges. They don't have a spot you can actually roll off of. So we're going to learn to do kind of our drop-in motion. This is a great place to practice, to learn how to drop into things like quarter pipes. And all we're trying to do is make sure that when we're on our board, we have that board comfortability, that we are in control. So even if I put my foot on the board right now, I don't have to go nowhere until I'm ready to go. And when I'm ready to go, what I'm going to do is I'm going to practice this on flat first, of course. But then once I get good at it on flat, I'm going to continue to mimic what I did on flat here on the wedge. And what I usually do on flat is try to get all my wheels to touch the ground before any motion begins. And that looks just like this. Right there and then, that motion right there, if you can complete that, any wedges available to you. But as I said, most times you may find wedges that are already connected to a bigger, flatter area. This is as simple as just rolling straight just like you would on flat, and then making your body match the angle of the ramp. The idea is not to put your entire body into the ramp, it's to let your lower half kind of follow the example. So here I am standing up, I'm kind of resisting back, but not putting myself too forward either. And all you're doing is you're just going to push right through the ramp, let it take over. You don't have to go fast towards it to get that gain. You might even find yourself kind of hung up right here. That's okay. Let it roll right through. You'll be just fine, just like rolling on the flat.
Is there anything that somebody has to do once they're sliding down with their body weight?
No, most of the time, like I say, just kind of resist what it's telling you to do, but not so much that you're going to fall backwards. Just a little lean back is all it takes to keep that balance point to stay right where it needs to be above your board. The feet are parallel. I'm just riding the ride, and that's it. Now, if you notice, the wedge is not as deep as a quarter pipe. A quarter pipe is going to send you almost to this situation. You kind of resist this as well as you get used to transitions. But as you build your base up, I would start with things like this small, working your way a little up and a little down, and then continue to work your way up on bigger and bigger transitions as you get used to it. As you notice on Ranger Skate Academy, there is a video out there right now, 5 easy tricks you can learn as soon as you get aboard. And so we're going to utilize some of those and a couple new ones. The first one, of course, I would always say easy trick to do. And it's one of those classic you know, arriving to the scene kind of moments. It's going to be popping your board up onto your foot and taking it with you. So you can either A, pop the board, grab it with your hand. You're on your way, you're going to go to school now, you're at the club, you're at the skate park, whatever you want to do, you're now ready to enter the building. Now the other one that's cool is by popping it, but scooping your foot underneath instead. So right there, that's all we're doing. You even could throw in a little extra flip if you want, just because you can. Just throw it on right in there, and as many times as you want, and then set it back down and go on your way.
All right, so let me do those 2 tricks.
Let's try.
I did the first one a while back.
Okay.
That's easy, just pop it, grab it.
Yeah.
All right. Now I'm going to try that pop it, and then use your foot to bring it up.
Yep. And it's just that as soon as that pop happens, scoop your foot right underneath it. Almost, yep. Let me get on the side here so we can get that action. Oh, yeah.
First time.
There we go. Right there.
First time I got that trick down. So really scoop. The trick is scooping that foot right underneath it. Right?
Yep, right underneath it. Yep.
I feel it. A little more practice and I'll get it.
Yep.
There you go.
And like I said, it took less than a minute to even get that mastered now, you know.
Right.
This right here is a maul grab. This is grabbing your truck. We want to grab our nose. Just grab that nose. Yep, that is an action thing. I don't know why people are so weirded about it. I don't think anyone really overall cares, but that is that one thing they say as skateboarding culture. It's a no-no. I don't know why it is. No, grabbing by your truck. It's considered what's called maul grabbing. So that's a vocabulary word we all know. Maul grabbing. And we talked about even making a show called Maul Grab because of that. As you get better at your TikToks, you know, as we mentioned, you'll get better at doing 360s. So whenever you're going fakie, I usually tend to do it fakie because it just seems that right pressure. But you can do what's known as a gyro spin. And basically you're just going to get on your 2 wheels and spin as many times as you can and roll away. I usually go fakie, like I say. Until you feel good, you know, and then you're good. Another one you can always do, and it's pretty simple. It's known as a boneless. It's a pretty simple thing to do. You're just trying to get comfortable. If you're comfortable to put your foot on here or take your foot off at any point in time, then you're set up to try this trick. And all we're trying to do is we're going to use our backhand. So if you're regular this direction, you're going to be using your right hand. If you're goofy like me, you're going to use your backhand. And all we're going to do is we're going to reach down as we're rolling or as we're standing still. We're going to take our front foot off. We're going to lean our body up and jump for it. And it looks like this in motion. We're rolling. Sometimes, just for my own safety, I'll grab my nose so I can reverse my hand around, just so I can get that easy jump on there. Not everybody can just lean like this and get back on it as easy. So to control a little better, I'll grab my nose and switch hands just so I know it's right underneath me in the right spot. This next segment of the part will be about all the things you're going to build yourself towards as a beginner, so you can transition yourself from being a beginner into intermediate tricks. So we're going to go over 3 things that I think is still a beginner tricks, beginner maneuvers that you will eventually utilize to advance yourself even further into your skateboard career. The first thing we're going to talk about is the ollie. Very popular and very important trick to learn. Once you learn to ollie, everything opens up. The next hardest trick I would say to master or to get through would be your drop-ins, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But then once you do learn how to ollie, next thing that may come up will be either jumping gaps or learning your first actual flip. And the best flip to learn, I think, is the kickflip. So we're going to cover the ollie, the kickflip, and some gaps here after this. With the ollie, a lot of people's problem is, or issues with the ollie, is usually their front foot not meeting the nose, their elevational attempt at getting it to lift up, and the practices that we've brought into our ollie video, which please go check out. Multiple knowledges found in that video for sure. But just for a quick briefing, we go over what's called the 4-bolt system. As you learned in the beginning of the video, there are 4 bolts in both sides of the board. And when your front foot is up against the bolts, we want to see 4 bolts before we ollie. But when we land, I want to see 2 bolts. This is going to solidify that you don't break your board in the middle and that you land a solid, clean ollie. So we're going to give an example right here of how it looks. When I go to perform my ollie, I'm not trying to lower my entire center balance in the middle here down. My max height has now been taken away. Instead, I want to utilize my knees to my chest and create the space between the ground and me. As I slide my foot through, I see 4 bolts, and then when I land, I should see less than 4 bolts, or close to it. As you can see, 2 bolts.
Oh, the kickflip.
The kickflip. Now, I can't promise every kickflip I ever done has been landed, but that's because you're creating that space between you and the board now. With ollie, typically both your feet are attached to the board the whole ride through, but with something like a kickflip or any kind of trick after that, you're now trusting yourself to let go of the board completely and get back on that flying carpet ride back to success. Here's what we got as a kickflip.
Is there anything that you can tell the viewers on, can they relate the 4-bolt system with the kickflip? And is the ollie somewhat similar to the kickflip?
Yes. So once we have mastered the ollie, you'll notice there's quite a difference in how you position your feet for a kickflip. Now for me, an ollie, my toes are right behind the line of what I call the grip tape line. And I'm just trying to slide my foot through and bring it back down. When I'm going for a kickflip, my position is actually, I have 3 bolts almost in my view right now because one of my bolts are being covered up with my toe. My toes are not perpendicular with the actual thing. I'm kind of giving an angle because I want to be able to slide up just like an ollie, but I have to use my ankles resistance here like a pinball game, click, click, to flick the actual board away through the pocket. Now when I ollie, again, I'm just trying to get that motion to go through that corner, flicking the board and landing back in ollie position. Now I don't know where my feet are going to land every time, but typically as you get better at kick flipping, everything goes from being a flip back to an ollie, and you're just floating an ollie down the gap. So it's good to learn your flips fast, accurately, and consistently, so you have that feeling every time you jump down, whether it be a 1 set or a 20 set. You're going to catch in the air immediately, like any other kickflip you do on the flatland, and ride the rest of the ride down as an ollie. Okay.
All right, and since this video covers everything you need to know about skating when you're starting, Corey's going to cover the different ramps right now. This is a little bit more advanced, but you will have the knowledge, so when you practice, you know exactly what you're practicing for.
It's your bridge right now into intermediateness, and I'm so proud to see you get to this point. So if you stuck around this far, you're doing yourself the favor. Here's what we're going to talk about transition. Now, transition's a lot different in the sense of a quarter pipe compared to a wedge. A wedge is one solid, straight down mass. Now, quarter pipes have 2 pieces to them. They have what's called the actual transition and the flatting out. These come in different ways, depending on how much what we know as vert may be. So the more it's a wall, the more vert it is. And the less of the vertness comes into quarter pipes and and smaller launch ramps. This one technically is not a quarter pipe. This is considered like a fun box ramp, but it's still in the transition we need to practice with. It's a good height to begin on. So with that, we're going to take our same knowledge from how we dropped in on a wedge right here in the same sense, but you got to be more understanding that a wedge would stop about here because that's as far as it would go. But look how much more distance we have to go before our wheels meet. So we got to be quick about it. Same knowledge. As I'm stepping on here, this is on my time. I'm not going to go any time faster, so get a good lock into the coping, solidify yourself, prepare yourself, visualize yourself landing it, and follow that ghost. Do it a few times. Next thing you know, you're good at that. Now we take it to the next size up. We're going to go to the end over here. And here we have now coping, which gives us a little more tighter lock in. Now I'm just going to translate that drop in into this ramp. Same speed, same accuracy, going with the transition, not leaning too forward and not leaning too back. You continue that until you get to the next size ramp, which will be the one right here. Again, I'm not trying to rush into it. I'm not trying to hold back too much. I'm just going to go with the flow, kind of letting my lower half take care of it, not so much like top half. Then you go real crazy and you go into a ramp like this. We'll go to the back one back there. This is the tallest drop-in ramp they got here. And we're going to do it now because we got all the knowledge we need. And this is pretty much intermediate advanced right here. And we're just trying to get that same transition. Now this is like a wedge into an actual quarter pipe. So I got to put both practices together here on this one. But the same practice is the same. When I'm ready to go, I'm ready to go. And I'm putting my wheel straight down to the ground and I'm riding with the transitions. Now you'll eventually learn, if you get better at transitions, you get more comfortable around coping, you may not have to drop in that way. There could be the way of pushing in or ollieing in. It's something like this. But believe me, as you build your confidence up with your board, get more comfortable with transitions, you too will be able to do something in this nature, and we will be happy to cover that kind of way to go into a quarter pipe in later installments. But for right now, this is a great way to get yourself built up on learning how to drop in and to tackle banks and transitions.
Now we got one little bonus feature if you made it this far.
What?
We're going to show you a bowl. Doesn't mean you're ready to skate it. You got to work yourself up to it. But we're going to show you a little bit of a bowl and maybe some stuff that you could do, because this video you will go ahead and bookmark it and come back to it as you're progressing. One video and it will take you really far.
And we'll always be here for you.
And you can always watch any of our other videos. Please subscribe right now. Take the time to subscribe if you're learning a lot, and let's check out that bowl.
And if there's anything we maybe missed or you think would be perfect inside of a beginner video like this that we did not cover, the comments are there for you all day. So please, we want to hear from you.
And we answer them. All right, let's check out that bowl.
Let's check out the bowl. So Rangers, we've gotten to this point. It's almost the end of the video, but just to cover extra bonus thing, you may come across transition. It's in a third dimensional realm. It's been closed off. There's transitions everywhere. What is this? What's happening? This is a bowl. This is a half pipe with all dimensions, and this is something that is really fun to skate. It is no different than dropping on any other transition once you get used to it, and you just get a lot more carvability in here. So you get to put all the practices we talked about in this beginner video all in one piece of equipment, and here's how it could look. Minus a few tricks maybe you can't do yet, but hey, we're always here to help you advance yourself as well. But that is how you use a bowl. Be blessed. Keep grinding, Rangers.